Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hey everybody, welcome in. I'm Jesse Montano. Very lucky today to be joined by Chad Brown. Chad, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. Jesse, how you, man?
I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks for
I didn't like that last play.
Yeah.
Those last couple plays, but I'm doing well.
Well, good. You're probably doing a little bit better than Sean Payton is right in this exact moment. We're here to break down Broncos Colts 29-28. The Colts win it on a walk-off. And there's a lot to unpack, like you said,
Yes.
just with those last couple plays. But Chad, let's actually go back to the beginning, because I think there is positives you can pull out of this game for the Broncos. You're gonna have to go back to find them. But I guess let's just start very broad strokes. I guess first of all, how you doing? It's good to see you. What have you thought of these first couple weeks around college and the NFL?
Wow. My Buffs are struggling.
Yeah.
My Buffs are struggling. But the Broncos, there's positives, and I'm sure we'll get into all that.
Yep.
But early season football is always so interesting. College in particular, because there's no preseason games.
Right.
So what coach in the country knows who his team is going to be? I'll answer that. None of them know who their team is going to be. And now that the NFL is kind of following suit with a lot of teams doing less preseason action, I think these coaches are also figuring out who their teams are in these first couple of weeks. And so they're making calls with not the clear confidence and expectation of what's going to happen on the field.
Yeah.
And we're seeing dumb penalties. Not just for the Broncos, but around the league.
Yep.
We're seeing game-changing mistakes by players. We're seeing coaches who don't know the rules.
Yeah.
Ben Johnson. Yeah. So it's early season football is what it is.
Yeah. And it's led to a lot of crazy results, unpredictable final scores. But for the Broncos, a lot of expectations for them this year. Similar to the Buffs, a lot of expectations coming into this season after what they were able to do last year. Week one, they get the result. It's not quite perfect, but it's always better to learn lessons in a win than in a loss.
Right.
What lessons do you think the Broncos learned from last week to this week? Broad strokes. How did you think they looked compared to week one?
Bo Nix was better with the football.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about that. Sean Payton was more consistent calling run plays. And, it wasn't like a run play where we can check out of it because that was his excuse during the week. Well, some of those were RPOs and this, that, and the other. It were run plays.
Yeah.
And what that does to a defense when you can consistently sprinkle in the run is really immeasurable. So it always blows me away that these guys who make Sean Payton's case tens of millions of dollars and don't understand what a consistent run game does to the psyche of a defense and how it keeps you off balance and how it opens up the bootlegs, which we saw Bo Nix have success on today. It opens up play action passes, which we saw Bo Nix have success on those today. So I'm glad Sean Payton got over himself and called some run plays.
There was a late game. I believe it was 3rd and 2. They run the ball. They pick up the first. Instead of having to go that fourth, I turned to you and said, do they get that first down last year?
Nope.
And you just shook your head. No. So to your point, the importance of the run game. I think a much better start for the Broncos this week. One of the things Nate Jackson talked with him earlier in this week about was he said he didn't like, kind of the script the Broncos came out of the gates and started with last week. They score on their first 2 drives to start this week. I liked the start better. And like you said, a lot of that starts with Bo Nix. Yeah,
Bo Nix was just cleaner with the football. I think he was more comfortable with what he was being asked to do. And it's impossible when you have the rookie year that Bo Nix had and your coach is talking Super Bowl and everywhere you go around town, people are slapping you on the back, not to live up to that.
Yeah.
In week one, you can't win the Super Bowl in week one. There's a long way to go before you get there. So Bo Nix was trying to play playoff football, the Super Bowl last week.
Yep.
Now he looked like he was settled into himself. And so if he can play like that, that was winning football from Bo Nix. Last week, they got lucky. They got the rookie quarterback and the Titans. This week, offensively, that was winning Broncos football.
And they maybe even got lucky because Cam Ward looked really good today as well. So they maybe got lucky, but delayed a week. I'm quick detour. What are your thoughts on Sean Payton doing that? Coming out and saying, oh, he's going to be a top 5 quarterback, Super Bowl. There's hyping up your players. Is there also such thing as maybe putting some unfair expectations for them to live up to?
I thought throwing out the Super Bowl, it's too early for that.
Yeah.
to say this is a Super Bowl organization and we're headed that way,
Yep.
that's great. This is a Super Bowl team, and I know he was talking about the Super Bowl window,
Right.
but fans, they're short for fanatic. They lose perspective on the rest of the quote there.
Yeah.
And it's Super Bowl this year. And so whenever I go to the grocery store, or I am in a restaurant, people want to talk to me about Broncos football. Right. Everyone mentioned Super Bowl. I'm like, whoa. A couple of years. Sometimes you got to knock on the door a bit.
Yep.
We would love to win a playoff game before we start talking Super Bowl. So I think it's out there, but this year it feels a bit premature. And there's enough issues now on both sides of the ball to discuss and fix before we start talking about, any Super Bowl ticket purchases.
Yeah, like you said, winning a playoff game and winning the division, man. Let's start there. Let's start with some more kind of attainable goals. Like I said, not to take us too far on a tangent, but again, like you like a lot of what you see in the first half. It felt a little bit like whoever had the ball last going into halftime was gonna kind of come out in front. But I really like the fact that you get a lot of pushback from the Broncos every time they score. Colts come right back down, push back. Again, showing some signs of maturity just in that little way.
Yeah, there was a more thought out game plan.
Yeah,
and to be able to do the things that a game plan is supposed to do. You want to be able to control the tempo of the game. You want to be able to dictate the clock. You want to be able to keep the defense off balance.
Yep.
You want to be able to attack where they're weak. If they got a player who's having a bad game, you want to be able to do that and attack that player. We saw all those things I just listed out there today. Maybe not enough of all those things, but we saw them. And so if Sean Payton can begin to build off of that and formulate his game plans as he begins to know this offense and these players better with those kind of things in mind, that's winning football.
Oh, and I want to get and we'll get there gradually, but there was a lot of bend but don't break moments for the Broncos D today. Really good inside the red zone as well. Multiple times in the game, kept the Colts out of the end zone, forcing them to settle for 3. You mentioned, that there's a little bit of this, say, fourth quarter, second half, letting teams back in. That is now a spillover a little bit from last year, especially the way this game ends. But again, you like a lot of what they do inside the red zone. Hufanga makes a couple big plays, in both halves. Your thoughts on the Broncos D? Like I said, a lot of bend but don't break moments, and had them in good position at halftime. And even coming out of that, keeps the Colts in check. Your thoughts on the Broncos D today?
I don't think the Broncos D should pat themselves on the back when they give up 160 plus yards rushing to Jonathan Taylor's a really good back.
Yeah.
Quentin Nelson's a really good guard. The Colts have shored up their offensive line. Daniel Jones can put pressure on your defense with the arm and with the legs, and Giants fans are wishing they probably had him back right now. But the fact that the red zone defense was good. You forced the Colts to kick 5 field goals. You took the first Colts drive of the season where they didn't have a score in it. Up until that drive, the Colts had scored on all their drives, either field goals or touchdowns. So this offense has certainly moved the ball. Again, they've had their share of red zone issues going to this game. Well, at that point, the stat was showed during the game, I think it was 6 field goals for 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So the Colts offense is not a red zone juggernaut, so the Broncos were able to stop them. This defense has got some things to clean up. And when you are built for a certain way, obviously the edge rushers and the secondary are kind of what's talked about with this defense. Well, that means you've got to be far enough ahead where the other team is forced to pass the ball.
Right.
And if they're dedicated to running the ball, as the Colts were today, and they've got a back they like and trust, as they do in Jonathan Taylor, at some point, that guy gets 25 plus carries, he's going to wear your defense down. And so to your question, as my roundabout answers come kind of circling back there, we saw this last year with the Broncos defense, statistically very good, but gave up some game losing drives in late in ball games. And that essentially happened again out there today.
Why is that? Because you're spot on with those numbers. 25 carries for Jonathan Taylor, averaging just over 6.5 yards per carry. Of course, he had the 68-yard run there in the fourth to kind of break things open and get this game in position for where it ended. Why is that? Because I think that's such an interesting thing you just said, Chad. Of this has been one of the top defenses in the NFL for geez, it feels like, almost a decade consecutively. But they, at times in this last 10 years, they've had a hard time winning the one-score games. And now, even with them moving, more positively in that direction, still these late game struggles, allowing for the big pops, the run game. Why is that? And I guess maybe that's one of those things where if you knew, you'd be, you'd have all the answers. But
I think Dre Greenlaw would help.
Yes.
So as soon as he can get healthy, that would be significant. There were a number of times Alex Singleton was an issue out there today. And I admire the gutsiness of his playing with the big wrap on his thumb. But he missed tackles. In the run game, he was knocked off the ball or knocked backwards. So there's an issue there. And without watching the coach's tape, it's hard to decipher who on the interior defensive line is doing a great job. But again, it's hard to laud anybody on the front seven when you give up 160 yards plus in rushing. So that's an issue. And this is the NFL. Every team can run the football to a certain extent. And if you don't fix it, guess what you're going to see next week? And then the week after, and then the week after. So the Broncos defense can't be like, well, we'll be better when Dre comes back, because even when he's come back in some of the past with the 49ers, there were injury issues after that. And for a guy who's struggling to get on the field now, one of the concerns would be, well, once you get back, you're probably going to strain something else because your body's off balance. You haven't gotten the whole, chain of movement back. So there's some concerns there. And so as good as this defense can be, if Bo Nix and those guys get the lead and you can unleash Ellis and Bonito and Cooper and the edge guys, that situation is not going to come up all the time. And you've got to stop what happened out there today. You've got to earn the right to rush the passer by stopping the run.
I love that.
Yeah. And so until they do that, teams are going to attack them very similar to what the Colts did today.
I mean, you and I commented, even just there in the last 10 minutes of the fourth quarter, like, wow, they're going back to him. They're going back. It was obvious that the Colts were seeing something there where it's like, 6.5 yards a carry. And he was up at 8 at one point there in the fourth quarter. Like you said, teams aren't going to be afraid to keep going to that. You just mentioned playing with the lead. How big of a difference should playing with the lead be for this Broncos team, given what you're talking about there?
Oh, it's massive because now we can force the offense into predictable situations rather than in the 3 downs expecting maybe 2 runs and a pass. Now we're thinking 1 run and 2 passes because the clock is ticking. They've got to throw the ball to get back into this game. That plays directly into Vance Joseph and these edge guys' hands, and even Zach Allen up front. If you can pin your ears back as a pass rusher, if I can put my hand in the dirt and know it's going to be a pass, suddenly my pass rush rate win percentage is so much higher. As opposed to, is it 3rd and 4? Could it be a run? Could it be a screen? Could it be a draw? Could it be a pass? I don't know. Well, my rush is going to be completely different than when it's 3rd and 8. And I can literally pin my ears back and go after the quarterback. And I'm not going to be afraid to put on my best move on this guy. Because if I do it and it's a run play, now I've opened up a massive gap. But if I know it's a pass play, the inside move won't hurt us at all.
Right. And that's what they were able to do. They were able to stretch it out. 21-13 in the last couple of minutes of the first half. The Colts were able to punch one in. So it's a 1-point lead, but it's a lead and you're getting the ball coming out of half. Again, just with everything we've talked about, second half struggles for this Broncos defense. What did you think of how they approached the second half, coming out, getting the ball first? It felt like this game, Bo Nix trended down a little bit as the game went on. Do you agree with that?
I would agree with that. The Colts are pretty good. They've got some players. They've got talent at all 3 levels of their defense. I don't think anybody's going to mistake them for the 85 Bears or anything like that. But DeForest Buckner is a problem in the middle of the defense. Franklin can make plays on the 3rd level. So they've got guys. But I think the tightness of the moment affected Sean Payton a little bit and affected Bo Nix a little bit. But if you put up 28 points, when you sit in a team NFL meeting and coaches are discussing goals, offensively, 28 points is surpassing what our winning goal should be.
And that's what they did. J.K. Dobbins came out and first drive, or I guess it wasn't the first drive of the second half, but they extend it from 21 to 28.
So that's enough points to win the ball game. Defensively, your score total from a goal perspective is usually 17 or less. So to give up 29 and to kind of wilt a little bit there against the run in the second half and give up 160 plus on the ground, you didn't meet very many goals there. They got 6 sacks last week. The Colts certainly had a much better plan for dealing with the Broncos' edge, and part of that was the run game, but also part of that was moving the pocket, relying on Daniel Jones' feet, and some protection schemes as well.
Yeah. We are getting a couple quotes that are coming in from Postgame here. Sean Payton said that is going to be painful to watch that film. We shot ourselves in the foot. We put ourselves in a position to control the game late, and it slipped out of our hands.
I agree with that, but I would imagine Shane Steichen is going to say the same thing, because the Colts had a number of penalties as well, and they had a number of dumb plays as well, and they almost gave it away. So both teams would love to be cleaner with the football. So it's not as if the Broncos just let this slip through their fingers. They were also unable to take advantage of mistakes that the Colts made multiple times throughout the game.
I mean, a crazy, roughing the passer on what was about to set up a 3rd and long for the Broncos. They're able to convert that again on the next play. To your point, these definitely weren't mistakes that were going one direction here. Sean Payton said that the busted coverage was concerning today. Do you agree with that?
When you have Jonathan Taylor coming out of the backfield and there's not a Bronco defender within 10 yards of him, that's a concern, because it wasn't as if the Colts pulled off some play that is brand new to the NFL to have a receiver cross shallow and a back come out the backfield. My rookie year was 1993. That was a long time ago. I saw that my rookie year. People have been doing that play for forever. I'm 55 years old.
Yeah.
So for these guys not to have their eyes trained on that, okay, when that guy goes across, the inside guy takes the shallow guy. The outside guy takes the back out of the backfield. It's really football 1-on-1. This is such a simple thing, and for the Broncos to bust that multiple times, if I'm Sean Payton, if I'm Vance Joseph, I'm concerned about that.
Yeah.
Because what's the disconnect there? Did you not know what the assignment was? Were your eyes not in the right place? Explain to me what went wrong. And I don't mean that, like sometimes your parents will ask you, what were you thinking? And they're being like kind of sarcastic about it.
Right.
In this case, on Vance Joseph, I need to know what you were thinking.
Yeah.
Because we talked about this in minicamp. We talked about this in OTAs. We went over this. You went over this when you were in college, inside, outside routes. This is not new.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, and like you said, concerning is always when you're not like, oh, I'm mad, I'm upset. When you're concerned, that's a different.
That's what they say in the mafia.
Right.
I'm a little concerned about this thing. That means someone's about to die.
Yeah, we need to take care of this. So Bo Nix, crucial mistakes by the Colts as well. One of the mistakes in the second half was Bo Nix. Ball gets deflected, gets picked off. The throw's not from inside the red zone, but the pick is right around the 10. That's a big moment. But again, that the Broncos are able to stifle a bit for the Colts, hold them to just 3. What did you see on that one, and how do you think that affected Bo Nix there the rest of the way? Or did it, I guess? As
a quarterback, if your hand's getting hit, it can't help but affect you. We've seen quarterbacks' seasons end when somebody gets pushed back into them and their thumb hits somebody's helmet or shoulder pads and they break a thumb.
And it almost looked like he was trying to avoid that a bit with the way he pulled back on that throw.
I think he sensed it coming, so he was unable to follow through with the throw. And then now after that, whenever you feel pressure coming in your face, we hear about quarterbacks getting happy feet. They also can get, I'm not sure if there's a quarterback term. I'm certainly not familiar with it if it is. But basically, you want to get you off your spot. And that spot is where you feel comfortable stepping in and throwing the ball with a full follow-through. If I can get you off that spot, then I can force overthrows and tips and things like that. So it ended up being an overthrow because the hand got hit as releasing that football. And then I think it affected him a little bit the rest of the game.
Yeah, and him and Sean Payton have a little bit of not after the pick, but they're in the fourth quarter after a couple drives after the pick was thrown. Him and Sean Payton have another exchange on the sideline. I like to see that kind of stuff. The competitive nature from Bo Nix, the kind of respect between him and Sean Payton. Is that anything that concerns you at all, Chad?
I've tried to
knowing that we had a similar episode last year.
Right. I've tried to look at this one from all angles.
Yeah.
Marvin Lewis was my linebacker coach when I first got to Pittsburgh. And Marvin asked me, how did I want to be coached?
Yeah.
And I told Marv, just don't yell at me. I'm trying as hard as I can. If you see me not giving effort, then you get a pass to yell at me.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, yelling's not going to make me suddenly smarter or make me better. It's probably going to make me crawl into my shell a little bit. So I like the fact that Bo Nix pushes back. But did Bo Nix and Sean Payton have this conversation that Marvin Lewis and I had? And
right.
Bo said, you know what? If I do something dumb, give it to me.
Yeah.
But I'm also, if I feel like I'm right, I'm going to give it right back. So I appreciate the level of respect because Sean turned back to him again and Bo said a couple more words and they separated.
Yeah.
I've seen that situation where those last couple words maybe are fighting words and those guys come together. I've seen Bill Cowher hand somebody his play sheet because he was going to fight somebody on the sideline. And I'm like, whoa. Bill McCartney obviously was not going to fight somebody on the
right.
CU sidelines. So that was a brand new thing for me. But over my 15 years in the NFL, I've definitely seen heightened emotions. I've seen players and coaches go at it. So as long as they can find ways to keep it respectful and both of them can move on to the next play or the next series, then that's great. I've also seen Mike Holmgren in Seattle get so upset that he couldn't call plays the next series. So if Sean Payton's anger is taking him to a place where he can't deal with the next series,
can't focus on the task,
then you don't engage in that. So as long as both guys can handle it, I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
But I've seen it go bad so many times that if I were the general manager or the owner, it would be worthy of a conversation this week. Where are we with this? Is this do we have a handle on this, or is this going to be something we're going to have to deal with that could potentially get ugly?
Are we going to keep seeing this on the sideline every 3-4 weeks?
Yes.
Yep. So, Bo Nix, like you said, I think it did affect him a little bit the rest of the way. They don't put up any more points the rest of the way. And again, it ends up being, kind of death by paper cuts here as it's 3 points, and then that ending play, which we are about to get to. But I've kind of checked all the little boxes that I've wanted to on some of this. Let's talk about how this game ends. A couple, some interesting calls by the Colts. They keep running the ball. You and I were looking at it, maybe saying, maybe go for a pass and try to gouge for a few yards here. They can't quite get there. They end up having to attempt a 60-yarder. Way wide right. Jeez, that was moving on. Flag on the play, leverage. Can you, for folks who aren't familiar with that call there, what happened on that first field goal attempt that the Colts missed?
The first one, it was just too far. The play before, Jonathan Taylor ran the ball into the middle of the hashes, which is an ideal location for the NFL kicker to kick the ball. But that kicker's previous long was 54, and that was in college at Notre Dame.
Yep.
So he hadn't attempted to kick that far in the NFL, I believe, from an attempt standpoint. Certainly hadn't made one.
Yeah.
Despite being 4 for 4 on the day, clearly he had the Colts' confidence because they were very vanilla trying to, I think they saw the clock as more important than they saw as the yards, which speaks to their confidence in their kicker. Mm-hmm. But you and I were sitting there going, I think you're going to need a few more yards, and maybe you should consider passing the ball here. Turns out we were right because that was a little bit past his range. Because when a kicker tries to overkick or kick really far, that's when the accuracy starts to become an issue. And we saw him quite wide right, as you just described. So I think that was a little bit too much confidence by Shane Steichen and what his kicker can actually do. And they were just too vanilla with the play call. The Broncos had 9 guys on the box. And then on that third down play, they had 11 guys in the box. It was the perfect time for a tight end pop pass or something like that.
Yep.
I'm sure Vance Joseph has warned his guys about something like that. But when you have that many guys that close to the line of scrimmage, if you've got an opportunity to do something tricky, there's no one back there that could have sealed the game for the Colts.
Yeah, and like you said, we ended up being right. It was a little bit too far, but and it was a little bit confusing at first. We saw the flag go down, and we weren't 100% sure of what was going on. You saw the Colts kind of gather around the refs, so we figured there was probably something going against the Broncos. Leverage. You are allowed to jump over guys. You're allowed to go around guys. You're allowed to go under guys. You cannot use them to push off to go over top. Is that correct?
That is correct. So when you're jumping over a guy and you contact that guy's kind of rising up out of his stance, while that's not necessarily providing you leverage as the jumper, that fits within that rule. So that's typically when it's called. But you also can't push off a guy's shoulder pads and try to use that to get extension into the air, which is what happened.
Yep.
So that's going to be called leverage as well. So particularly around the center is protected. The short snapper on the field goals is protected by the NFL rules. So they're always going to watch that as well. So to do that in the middle of the line, someone did not have an understanding of what the rules are and what the officials are looking for in that situation. And that ended up being, because we were talking about the Broncos not taking advantage of the Colts being offsides earlier and not understanding how important 5 yards could be in a 2-point game, which was 28-26 at that point.
Right.
So now we're not understanding what the rules are, which ends up giving the Colts a massive penalty, putting their kicker very comfortably within his field goal range. He nails it right down the middle. The Broncos lose.
All right. So you just brought up another play. Let's talk about two things that I want to get your concern meter level on. One is what you're just talking about. God, do you not know the rules there? And then the other is the offside, non-offside call that we saw on the Broncos' previous drive, where it looked like a Colts defender had maybe lunged a little bit, but got back on side. The ball snapped, and there was just a lot of discombobulation on the Broncos side of the ball. The ball's live. Guys are pointing. They're not blocking. How concerned are you about fundamental missteps like that?
That's concerning because that's coaching.
Right.
That's coaching. So your center ideally should be coached as soon as someone jumps off sides, snap the ball, because now it's going to be offsides. And so once a player enters into the zone where that ball enters into that neutral zone and goes off sides, we have an opportunity to get a free 5 yards. Mm-hmm. And so we should take that every single time. And so to allow the Colt defender to then get back off sides, but clearly the rest of the Broncos did not know. I can't remember, was it Dobbins who was in the game?
Yeah, it was Dobbins, yeah.
So Dobbins was pointing as the play was happening, trying to tell Bo Nix that it was offsides, and Bo Nix is trying to execute the free play.
Yep.
And then Bo Nix is running on a free play, taking a shot from DeForest Buckner, who's 6'7", 290. So it was discombobulated, to your point.
Yeah.
But to me, that's a coaching thing. There should be everyone on the field needs to know what the right play is in each situation.
Yeah.
And whenever somebody jumps off sides, we need to know what that play is going to be. We got to snap the ball, number one, take advantage of that, to create the free play.
Yeah.
Then everyone else, the receivers need to run the right routes. The running back shouldn't be pointing. The running back should be looking to block somebody on this free play. So that could have been literally a game-changing play.
Yeah.
But they didn't execute that properly in a game that ended up being a one-score game. That could have been the difference in this one. And
you called out as it was happening. You said, no, one-score game. What are you doing? Like, you have to get that free play. And this is a team that I think there's not much debate about it. It's a better team than it was last year from a roster standpoint, right?
Roster standpoint, yes.
From a roster standpoint. You can point to, better depth, some more skill, better options for Bo Nix. Is that what, in your assessment here, Chad, is this what we're seeing a little bit here in the first couple of weeks of a team that on paper is better, but it's showing there's a lot of game between the ears that has to move forward as well for you to really start taking those steps?
I think when you have a successful season the year before, but it ends short of the Super Bowl, you want to fast forward to get back to that.
Yeah.
And somewhere in that is lost that we got to take care of business today. We can't just jump back into the playoffs and win a wild card game and hopefully go on a run. Right. That'd be great. We got to earn our way back there. This is a brand new season. Everything we accomplished last year was great from building confidence, but it doesn't win us a single play. It doesn't buy us a cup of coffee this year. And so I think we're seeing some of that show up here with some of this disconnect. And it affects everybody. Everybody reads the headlines.
Yeah. Everybody
gets that positive feeling. And you as a coach or as a player, maybe the details of what we do when somebody's offside slips.
Yeah.
And that could end up being a play that costs you the ball game in a one-score game.
And especially with how tight I'm expecting this division to be this year, the way that it's gotten off, to the start the first couple of weeks, can not only cost you a game, that can end up costing you seeding or playoff positions in general. 16 weeks from now, you're not really thinking about that, but it's these little moments early in season, especially in the NFL, where every game is so valuable. It adds up, and you would hate to see something like that happen on they didn't realize it was a free play, or it should have been a free play.
This may be the greatest division of head coaches, maybe ever in NFL history. And it sounds insane to say that Sean Payton could somehow maybe be third or fourth in this division in the head coach rankings.
Yeah.
Because Sean Payton's a really good football coach, but that just speaks to the rest of the coaches in this division. And this is going to be a really good quarterback division. And so when you recognize what is out there, two of the most critical things to winning football games, quarterbacks and head coaches, their margin for error is always small in the NFL. But in this division, it's going to be microscopic.
Tiny.
And so those details will matter. Leverage will matter when you give somebody an extra 15 yards and a chance for another field goal to walk off and win the ball game. When you don't take advantage of a free play out there, those things show up and they matter.
Yeah. It's and again, as we were saying that, this could matter. It ended up mattering big time with the walk-off field goal. 29-28. We're here breaking it down. Jesse Montano, Chad Brown. We're going to have BK joining us. Brandon Cristal from Indy. He's in the locker room right now. Let's go back a little bit and let's talk about some of those positives to maybe take out of today.
Yep.
Right? Because this is definitely an easy game to bad taste in your mouth. It ends really negatively. That's going to be the tone all week. But again, I thought process-wise, I thought this was a better game than week one. J.K. Dobbins goes 14 carries, averages just under 5.5 yards per, 76 yards for this game. Bo Nix only 3 times scrambling out of the pocket, hits 20 yards himself. Again, you and I were talking during the game that the running game being able to take a step forward this year is going to be significant for them. We saw it on display at a couple times during this game. Running game, is that something that you look at this and say, again, while still not perfect, it's getting better. We're seeing better habits maybe than what we saw last year?
Yes, I think the overall operation of the run game is better. And we know this Broncos offensive line is highly rated from a pass blocking perspective. But they got some dudes up front who are willing to put their face on people. Yeah. So let's take advantage of that. And running the football is an attitude. And again, there's an effect that you put on the defense when you do that consistently. If I'm a linebacker, do I want to take on Quinn Miners 20 times a game? I don't.
Right.
I really don't. And at some point, and somewhere in those last 5 times, I'm going to make a business decision in there, which could end up being a gash play, a 20-yard play. And so you've got to sprinkle that in enough to have that effect on the defense. So I see that from a Sean Payton perspective. I like what J.K. Dobbins brings. And then, again, I think we've got some guys up front. We got some tight ends who are willing blockers. That hasn't always been the thing here with the Broncos. Some of these guys are willing to get their faces a little dirty as well. So I like that. It's hard to say that you could run the ball too much. So if I like it, let's get some more of it, please. Yeah.
Yes, please. And thank you. 23-yard long for J.K. Dobbins today. Another, what ended up being a positive, and we will keep track of it here throughout the week, Chad. Pat Surtain was listed as questionable to return to this game at one point after suffering a non-contact injury. It was his ankle. He went down on the field for a couple minutes before he was, helped off to the blue tent. Comes back, ankle taped up, under and on top of the cleat. You have to be at least a little bit concerned about this if you're the Broncos as you monitor it here over the next couple days. But aside from that, even before the injury, the Colts were going at PS2 today, and they were finding some success. So while it's a positive that he came back from the injury, what were your thoughts on PS2 today?
They were going after him, and they were not afraid. Daniel Jones, who did not come into this season highly thought of as a passer, was unafraid of PS2. And so whether it was receivers or whether it was Tyler Warren, the incredible rookie tight end that they've got, who's going to be a problem for a lot of teams, because that dude, he's versatile and he's willing to block and catch. He's a really good player. I called a number of his games at Penn State. I love the way that he plays football. But yeah, PS2 was a little shaky today. And a lot of times it was those crossing routes. They were able to put a lot of traffic in front of him where he was trailing those cross routes and he just simply couldn't catch up. But the Tyler Warren player that I'm thinking of, it wasn't a cross route. It was just Tyler Warren got a little bit of separation and was able to elevate over PS2 and use his body to block him out.
Yeah.
So we'll see what this injury is. My guess is, and I did not stay at a Holiday Inn last night, so I'm not a doctor, but my guess is it's a typical regular ankle sprain, not a high ankle sprain where you roll your foot rolls inward. That's the good kind. Versus the kind where your foot rolls outward. That's the bad kind. Typically, if you get the high ankle sprain, you're out for 4 to 6 weeks. And even when you come back, you're going to be affected the rest of the season. I can speak from experience on that. The regular ankle sprain, some ice, some stem, you may be sore, you may be limited for a week or two, but typically you can recover and feel yourself within a couple of weeks.
Tyler Warren led the way for Colts receivers today, 79 yards on 4 catches, 7 targets for him. You said it's going to be a problem.
He's going to be, and the Broncos have had issues with tight ends for it feels like for decades now. But at the same time, Travis Kelce is going to go into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Antonio Gates wears a gold jacket. So some of these tight ends who they had issues with are literally some of the best to ever play the game. At the same time, I'd love to see you do a little bit better and not every time we play a team who's got a good tight end go, well, that guy's going to have an incredible day.
Right. Yeah. Free points on the board.
That guy's going to somehow be NFC or AFC player of the week.
Yeah. Who led the way for the Broncos in terms of receiving was Troy Franklin. This was a guy who maybe left some wanting last season. I've liked what you've seen through 2 weeks.
I love the Troy Franklin drive where he was the biggest part of that drive.
Yes.
And so if you are recognizing offensively as a play caller, Sean Payton, and as a quarterback, Bo Nix, you're recognizing that we are getting that guy on that team's third cornerback. Well, let's take advantage of that. And if they don't somehow remedy that during this drive and we can keep going on this drive and they don't substitute someone else in, well, let's keep going to that. So I love the fact that Sean Payton was able to take advantage of what the defense was giving them. Because sometimes I think these play callers can be so focused on next play, looking at their play sheet, they're losing track of what's actually happening on the field. What was happening was Troy Franklin was getting separation. Let's feed this dude. And there's no reason to stop until they make us stop. So that drive, and I guess that ended that, but that's a great way for that drive to stop with. They had no answers this entire drive for this guy. This is a guy obviously who played with Bo Nix in college. So it's nice to see him have a breakout game. And last season, clearly he was not trusted by the coaches to do what he was supposed to do. And now he was able to go out there and put together a drive where we're going to feature you on this drive because of what you're able to do.
8 catches on 9 targets for Troy Franklin. And the other big reason why it's important for Troy Franklin to be as effective as he was today. This is from Bo Nix after the game, talking about getting to Courtland Sutton. Said the Colts were, it was clear they wanted to limit Courtland Sutton. And he said, I've got to do a better job of getting him touches. Just 4 targets and 1 catch for 6 yards for number 14 in orange. Guys are going to key in on your top player sometimes. And like I said, it underscores the importance of Troy Franklin.
Yeah, you need multiple targets. You need, just like you need multiple defensive backs because people are going to put 4 and 5 wide receivers on the field. You need multiple receivers because if you want to take away somebody in today's NFL, you can. And it would be foolish outside of some isolated circumstances to try to force the ball into a guy who's got bracket coverage or is being double teamed or always has a safety on top of him. At some point, the ball is going to be a little bit high, going to be a little bit behind. It's going to end up being an interception because there's just too many defenders around that guy. So to have someone like Troy Franklin emerge now becomes much more difficult because as a defensive coordinator, well, who do we want to take away? And if it's Troy Franklin on this drive, well, now Courtland Sutton gets a chance to eat. So, and also they can work out ways if we know this is going to be the case going into games that they're always going to try to take away one player. Well, now we can move them around. These receivers are supposed to know all the various receiver positions and responsibilities. So while you may typically be the outside guy, let's slide you inside because you're 6'4" and the nickel back is 5'9". We need your length in here. We're going to call the exact same plays. You're just running from a different spot.
Here's a quote that just came out from Mike McGlinchey. Someone, I guess, had suggested the loss, on the Will Lutz missed field goal, the doink right before, and Mike McGlinchey called that bullshit. He said this was lost on way more than just one play.
It was. It was. No doubt about that. We talked about giving up 160 plus yards rushing. We talked about some of these coaching / mental plays that the Broncos made mistakes on. Will Lutz, yes, there was he doinked it.
Doink.
But, field goal kickers miss kicks. They doink kicks. A game is never lost on one play. And the Broncos defense certainly would deserve far more of the blame in my mind than Will Lutz deserves.
Yeah. Chad, when you look at the Broncos game today, just overall, knowing the result, knowing how he got there with bad mental errors in the fourth, but that it was a better game process wise to start. Where are you at with this one? Just overall.
Sometimes when you get the win, you think, okay, well, we're going to learn the lessons from this win, week one against the Titans. But it's much more difficult. It's nicer, but it's more difficult to learn the lessons, because when you win, somebody in the film room, a coach will point out something, and somebody will say, okay, they'll say all the right things. Okay, coach, I'll do better. And they turn to their friend and go, man, we won. We're good. And so now when you lose, you can't say that anymore. You got a long flight home, and you get home, and you're going to get home tonight, and you're going to look yourself in the mirror in the bathroom, and you're going to go, man, oh gosh, I wish I had that play back.
Yeah.
Oh, I know I could have did this. I'm looking forward to seeing that play on tape tomorrow. I can't wait to hear what coaches have to say about this. So the emotions of a tough loss are actually sometimes more real and more visceral than a blowout loss. Because I've had my share of blowout losses, and sometimes the coaches say that was just so bad, we're not even going to watch the tape.
Yeah.
We're moving on. Bill Belichick. We're on to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Yes.
Burn the tape.
Yes.
On to the next.
But a close loss, everything is dissected. Everything is shown. And there may be a Sean Payton low light tape tomorrow. And here are 12 plays that if we get any of these 12 plays to go the other way and go in our favor, we win this game. But we had a mental error. We had a not understanding the rules. We didn't execute the situation properly. We didn't use leverage to make the tackle. Whatever the issue was,
we used too much leverage on the field goal.
yes. All these things will be shown, dissected, and now taken internally by the players, and rather than shrugged off because we won, man. Why are you tripping, coach?
Now, so is this? And like you said, everything is so under a microscope in the NFL because of the number of games. Is there a chance, though, Chad, that this ends up being, in the long run, a good loss? Because were you potentially a missed field goal away from getting away with it 2 weeks in a row? And with what you're talking about there, does that have the potential to start building bad habits where it's like, we won, we got away with it, we won?
Yes, I think the best lessons are learned through losing. Getting punched in the mouth a bit, or getting embarrassed, or getting reamed by your coaches for the fact that these are the plays that we did not win, and you're involved in one of those. So yes, but it only becomes that if you take it to heart, if you take it seriously. So once again, we're using that word opportunity. Sean Payton was talking about these plays and opportunities to win. Well, now what's your opportunity to move forward from this? Do you look at those plays? Do you take it to heart? Do you take the coaching to heart? Do you memorize the rule and on a free play and how we're going to execute this? Do you all take that seriously? Or do you go, we're good, man. We got this. People are talking Super Bowl. We'll see. We'll find out. It'll show up. And in the words of Gary Kubiak, it was quite a long while ago when he said, we're fixing to find out. We're fixing to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a comment here in the chat. Just over 6,000 of you in here hanging out with us. This is from Jorge. We have no team identity, no consistency. That's coaching. What is Sean Payton saying right now to those guys?
Hopefully Sean Payton is putting some of this on himself. Because again, there were some coaching things that showed up. I've had some coaches in the past, head coach is yelling at the defensive coordinator on the sideline. What's he doing out there? And the linebacker coach would say, or defensive coordinator would say, do you see me out there? I'm not out there, which is a ridiculous answer. Your job as a coach is to teach that guy so well that he reacts to the situation the proper way. We know players can't be perfect. No one's ever played a perfect game, but he should have some idea of how to execute these situations. So when players don't know the situation, when players don't know the rules, then that's coaching. And then I'm sure from a game calling or play calling perspective, Sean Payton's got 4 or 5 plays he would love to have back. I don't have something specific in mind right now, but it's impossible for a play caller not to have some plays he wishes. I'm sure Vance Joseph is feeling the same way.
Right.
And I think that's probably a little bit more justified on Vance's side than on Sean's side, because I thought it was a winning offensive effort. But at the same time, as the head coach, you're responsible for the entire football team. And when you see some critical errors in critical situations, that typically goes on to coaching.
We've got a clip here from Sean Payton on that last, talking on that last Broncos drive. Let's see what he had to say.
Look, we got to be smart. You can't spike the ball, and and then we got to capitalize on a field goal opportunity. Like I said, there'll be a bitter taste in our mouth for a little bit, and it's because we put ourselves in a position to control that game late, and then it slipped out of our hands. So it's hard.
All right, you perked up there when he was talking about can't spike the ball there.
Again, another knowing the rules thing.
Right.
Pre-snap penalties and post-snap penalties, they're mental errors. That means you don't know what you're doing. You either don't know the rules or you don't know your alignment or assignment. Penalties that occur during a play, yeah, everyone's going to get –
right.
If you play offensive line, you're going to get called for holding. You play defensive back, you're going to get a pass interference. You're playing football.
Right.
But if you don't know as a receiver who's on the line and who's off the line, and now we got 5 guys in the backfield, come on, man. That's a pre-snap penalty. That's your fault. You don't know what you're doing. You spike the ball after a great run, and you don't know that's going to be a delay of game. That's a post-snap penalty. That's your fault. It's coaching aspect to this as well.
Right.
But it didn't occur because you were playing hard, because you were being competitive.
Right.
It occurred because you did something where you were not understanding the consequences of your actions, or you didn't understand your alignment or assignment.
The more we talk through here, the more and more I'm sitting here going, dang, this is a really frustrating loss because of how many. I mean, I think we've talked about 10 singular moments where, like you were saying, you do this one different and you probably win that game. You do this one different and you probably win that game. That's a long flight home to just, because like you said, there's what, 25 guys that can sit there and say, I'd like that one play back, if not more.
And again, hopefully they take it seriously, and hopefully this goes internal for them, and it goes into their football character, and they find ways to get better. And so, is this going to be one of those galvanizing moments where, I'm not going to do that dumb blankety blank again? Hopefully so.
Right.
Hopefully so. Because yes, spiking the ball, that was dumb. Using leverage, that was dumb. So, I mean, just off the top of my head, we can rattle off a couple of these. So hopefully we don't see those things again, because bad teams, they pave the same ground over and over and over and over. Good teams, yes, you're going to make a mistake, but we talk about it, we fix it, we walk it through, we address it in practice, we put it in the script. We're good. We're not going to make this one all season long again.
Yeah.
That's what good teams do. So hopefully Sean Payton can reinforce that.
Well, it's so funny you say that, because I used to talk, just with folks around town over this last decade where the Broncos really struggled there. And I said, what's the most concerning thing? Because you'd hear a lot of talk, about like, oh, they lost another 1-score game. Oh, they could be 11-0 right now. They've lost all these 1-score games. Yeah. And I would actually say, like, I think that's concerning that you can't win a 1-score game week after week after week after week. And again, that to me is exactly what you're talking about, of not being able to correct the issue that is plaguing you, whatever it is in the fourth quarter, on the last drive, whatever, to not be able to say, we're shutting this down and we're getting a win coming out of here. I think all the time about what Shelby Harris said in his on-field interview after his first game with the Seahawks when they beat Russell Wilson, the Broncos. He said, we said on the sidelines, they weren't getting over that. Like there never seemed to be any of that. And I do wonder if there's still a little bit of that culture that is stuck in that locker room right now of, not being able to make that one last play to win the close game.
Proper mindset is critically important. Because what I mean by that is if I've got the proper mindset, then I know what the situation is on the field. And as I talked about earlier, all 11 guys in each given situation, there's the right play to make in that situation. And so that's how you win close games, when you understand situational football, when you don't shoot yourself in the foot and you don't have all these self-inflicted wounds. So that's how you close out games. That's how you become a team like the Chiefs were last year, because we saw in the Super Bowl, they were unable to stand up to the roster the Eagles put on the field. But they had all those one-score wins because they knew situations, they knew how to not hurt themselves, and they believed in their mental ability of winning the game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Versus a team that hasn't been there so often, and situations can get a little bit out of control, and they can lose track of what's the most important here. Is it time for me to spike the ball here? No,
right.
It's not. It is not.
We do have a quote here from Pat Surtain after the game. Said he planted wrong and twisted his ankle, quote, a little bit. Said it'll be something that he will need to monitor, but, quote, nothing crazy.
It sounds like a low ankle sprain, as I described earlier.
Yep.
As I saw it on the field, that's how I would have immediately, if I was a trainer, I would have addressed it from that fashion. So it sounds like that's what it is. Hopefully that's the case, because, again, that can go away.
Yeah.
A high ankle sprain literally does not go away. You can play with a lot of pain, and a lot of tape, and a lot of all that stuff, but a low ankle sprain, Pat Surtain, 2 weeks from now, somebody will ask him a question. He'd be like, oh, yeah, I hurt my ankle. Yeah, but it's good. It's good. I'm good to go.
So dodge a bullet there
Yes.
For the Denver Broncos. We've talked a lot about Bo Nix, just kind of throughout this show and through this game, but he goes 22 for 30 for 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then he does have the 1 interception that, as you pointed out, gets deflected, or his arm gets hit as he goes forward. Just as a quick side note, because the game went final recently, Kansas City 0-2.
Yes, I expected that.
0-2.
I expected that. But again, they got off to a slow start last season. So.
Yeah. But just, Bo Nix, sophomore year, some moments in the preseason that made you pause or wince for a second, but it's preseason, so you try not to put too much stock into it. Doesn't have a great week 1. Just where you're at with Bo Nix, not even necessarily just for today's game, but here at the start of his sophomore year.
Well, Sean Payton said the sophomore jinx doesn't exist. Sean Payton, you're wrong, man. I don't think you were right to mention Super Bowl, and I don't think you were right to say that. I think you were wrong on both of those, and I feel very comfortable. And I would gladly meet Sean Payton at a bar and somewhere and buy him a drink to discuss this, because, in my opinion, both those are real. Having done coaching internships in the NFL, both during training camp and in the offseason, some coach is always tasked with writing a report to the defensive coordinator about all the quarterbacks we're going to face this year. And so you watch all of that guy's tape and you write up on what he does well and what he doesn't do so well. So it's very easy your rookie year, people don't have a book on you to sneak up on people and play a good season, as Bo Nix did last year.
Yeah.
But now you give every team that you play, they've got 17 games to watch of Bo Nix.
Right, exactly.
And now they begin to figure out, where is he comfortable? Where does his best throws come from? There were times when the Colts were purposely trying to get Bo Nix out of the pocket. Why? Because they want Bo Nix to run? No, because they know if we force him out to the pocket this way, his completion percentage is 20% lower to this side than it is to the other side. So people start to get a book on you. So is it a true, sophomore slump? Suddenly it's your second year and you're not as good? No, it's because people prepare for you. They figure you out. The book becomes clear on who you are. Then it's your responsibility as a player to grow the next layer of your game. Okay, you keep putting me in this situation where I wasn't so comfortable last year. I've got to find ways to get comfortable. I've got to find ways to increase my game or do you have better footwork when I'm escaping the pocket to my left versus the right, or whatever the case may be here. So that's what happens with this sophomore jinx thing. You give people enough tape on you. Football people love football.
Right.
So, yeah, we're going to play the Broncos twice a year if you're in Kansas City, if you're the Chargers, if you're the Raiders.
Yep.
You don't think those guys have a dossier on Bo Nix at this point? Yes, they do, particularly with everybody talking about how competitive the division is going to be, how good the Broncos are going to be. Yes, time was spent, not hours. Dozens and dozens of hours have been spent on Bo Nix to figure him out.
Well, and a kind of a smaller microcosm of that, you could argue, is what happened with your Buffaloes this weekend. Staub goes out last week. He's a third string guy. He's out there kind of slinging around. Houston looked a little bit more prepared for Ryan Staub than was the week before.
Yeah, you come off the bench as a third string guy that no one prepared for against Delaware.
Right.
The Blue Hens, are they even the fighting Blue Hens, or are they just the Blue Hens?
They are the fighting Blue Hens.
Okay, at least
yes.
they got some fight.
They got some fight in them.
From a hen perspective.
As far as hens go.
Right.
Yes.
But Houston, obviously a different level of a football team than the Fighting Blue Hens. And, reality showed up.
Yeah.
Reality showed up. My Buffs are struggling on both sides of the ball. At this point, they don't have a quarterback. Yeah. They don't run the ball with any consistency. They try to manufacture a win through explosive plays rather than consistent, sustained football. Yep. They don't tackle well on defense, and they don't limit big plays. Those are all major issues.
Yeah, I was going to say that doesn't sound like a great equation for success there.
Yeah, those are all major issues. And if they're going to have any chance of not even winning the Big 12, but a bowl game, 3 of those 5 things I've listed have got to be addressed immediately.
Now.
And I don't know how you can do some of those things immediately.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about Daniel Jones, but we've actually got Brandon Cristal, who is
BK.
at Lucas Oil Stadium right now. BK, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I can see you. Can you hear and see me?
Okay.
We can see you. We can hear you.
How about the Broncos snatching a loss from the jaws of victory, huh? Hate to see that.
No kidding. What was the vibe like in that room?
Dejection. They know they let one slip away, and this was a problem they had last year. I'm not saying specifically blowing a game like this, but they were 1-6 in those one-score games. The only win coming in that rainstorm deluge in the Meadowlands in week 3 when they beat the Jets on that last, that late touchdown. And other than that, when it was a close game, they kept finding ways to lose. So today, the Colts were doing all they could to really let the Broncos back in it. And the Broncos obviously shoot themselves in the foot. That was a phrase we heard repeated by not only Sean Payton, or said by Sean Payton, repeated by his players. When you talk about the Bo Nix interception that was tipped, as Sean pointed out, and I actually heard Dave Logan say it on the radio call too, the missed field goal, Will Lutz, is usually automatic from that distance. And then obviously the penalty on Awazarike doesn't help things either, but they weren't going to blame 1 or 2 or 3 little things as the reason they lost. They thought it was just a collective team loss. It
certainly was a team loss. But if the issue from last year continues into this year, was any quote in the locker room, did any quote address the close game concerns that keep showing up? Or was it just, we shot ourselves in the foot, we got to do better? Any analysis rather than a statement?
I don't know about analysis, but Mike McGlinchey, who's certainly been in some big games, went to a Super Bowl with the 49ers and some NFC title games, said we need to figure out how to win games. We have to win close games. They haven't really gotten over that hump because last year they didn't. And to this point, last week you're playing a rookie quarterback. It was an ugly game, but you never felt like you were going to lose that game. And here you got to, it's funny, for as many yards as they yielded to Daniel Jones, it goes over 300 yards and obviously a 68-yarder, but Jonathan Taylor still, north of 160 yards. You were able to bend but not break 4 times in the red zone to hold them to 4 field goals. Feels like, some moral victories, if you will. But ultimately, you've got to find a way to get over that hump, and you can't have a leverage play on a 60-yard field goal that's going to end up ultimately costing you the game. I get that wasn't the lone reason they lost, but you've got an inexperienced kicker who struggled through the preseason. He wasn't great on kickoffs today, and you put it in his hands. You should just be able to fire off. I understand there's an intensity to it and all that, but they know that they need to go and get a win. And a good way to start though, guys, would be next week at the Chargers, where last year they're up 21-0 in LA in that game in December, and find a way to lose that one. So maybe, and that's one thing Bo said, you can't let one loss become two losses.
We were just talking about Bo Nix and how, there's a little bit of struggle in preseason. Didn't love last week, but he gets the win. Just what did Bo have to say? And he throws the interception late, but it felt like it was a better game than last week.
Yeah, and the offense, especially in the first half, is clicking. And when you get 3 touchdowns and it's on 3 passes from your young quarterback who only had the 1 touchdown and the 3 turnovers last week, and you were playing a pretty clean game, he's not getting harassed too much. No one's writing home about. I mean, I think the Colts have a solid defense, but they don't have any dynamic edge rushers that are going to scare you. They don't have a Nick Benito over there, and so he was able to get into rhythm. He and Troy Franklin looked like they were back at Oregon, especially on that drive that culminated with the Franklin 3-yard TD. And it was funny because last year, I don't remember how many times, especially in Denver, you'd see a deep ball down the left sideline and he and Troy just would be off just a little bit. And Bo would always blame himself like a good quarterback would. And when they finally connect on a deep one, it's, a post from the right side. But so they finally, I know it was a scramble drill, but they finally connect on a 42-yarder down the left side. And so that was working. But when I asked Bo, I said, what was working on offense? I just left it open. And he said, we ran the ball better. And you could see that with the way Dobbins was able to run it and some good runs from Harvey. And from the beginning, Sean obviously was a little more committed to the run. I guess I'd throw it at you, Chad. Did you like the balance? I don't have the final numbers in front of me, but it felt more balanced throughout the game at least.
It certainly played that way, and they were able to keep the Colts defense a bit off balance. When you have balance on offense, the defense doesn't know whether to expect run or pass, and defense, they can wear it down if you continue to pass the ball. And it opens up the bootlegs. It opens up the play action passing. So there's certainly a effect to that. And so I was happy to see more runs, designed runs from Sean Payton. You were at the game, obviously. Jesse and I were watching it here in the studio. On the sideline, did you get a chance to see Vance Joseph and the defense? Because Jonathan Allen, you talked about being north of 160, halfway through the fourth quarter, he was averaging over 8 yards per carry. So what was that look on the sideline? Was there a sense of panic? Were players in conversation? Was Vance drawing up stuff? Break that down for us.
Yeah, I don't think there was a sense of panic. I think there was frustration. And I think the most obvious absence is Dre Greenlaw. And I understand they haven't had Dre Greenlaw, so you say, how is that an absence? But for what Justin Strnad can give you, I think he's limited. And yeah, he is fast, and I think maybe he's sometimes too fast. And I guess I'd have to go back and look at those big Taylor pass plays. But even in the the big run, inside linebacker, I can't remember whether it's him or Singleton, have a chance to make the play, and they don't. And then a couple defenders bump into each other and Hufanga tracks him down. But I don't know if there was that sense of panic. It was just, we have to keep this guy corralled. VJ said that to us on Thursday. I asked him a question about Daniel Jones, and he was complimentary to Daniel Jones, but he said, look, it all starts with Taylor, with the back, with 28. And it does. And that's why for him to get as open as he did on that long pass play in the flat in the first quarter, and then on the touchdown in the second quarter, it's got to be frustrating, because as well as Daniel Jones played at times, I just don't think he's really scaring you. And Jonathan Taylor can scare you. Also, Tyler Warren, another joker that I think Sean Payton would like to have. Evan Ingram's supposed to be his joker. He was on the field. It wasn't like he wasn't there today, but no one was pulling a joker off the top of the deck for the Broncos. And Tyler Warren, especially in the first half, looked awesome.
It was 30 to 24 passing to rushing attempts today for the Broncos.
Good balance, yeah.
Really 31 to 23, because Bo obviously ran it on that 18-yarder that was definitely a pass play. But either way, still better.
Chad and I have been talking a lot just about the mental mistakes in this game, and not just one, but kind of repeated, especially there in that second half. I guess similar to what Chad asked you of, did you notice, what did you notice on the sideline as some of those mistakes were, trickling in, and what was the message from Sean Payton after?
Just too many mistakes. And he said that. He said too many mental errors. They didn't have as many as the Colts did. The Colts had 4 penalties on one drive that each one of them resulted in a first down for the Broncos. And so it wasn't that egregious, but they came, and there's never a good time for a penalty, but obviously some costly ones. And that's something that Sean Payton's teams have always prided themselves on. Chad, you played for a bunch of different coaches, but I imagine your time in Pittsburgh, they treated penalties different than maybe they did in Seattle. And certainly I know your time in New England with Bill Belichick, there was not a lot of tolerance for mental errors and for silly penalties, for pre-snap penalties, for post-snap penalties. And that's the thing, even on the Dobbins spike, with the enthusiasm, that's 5 yards that they lose, and then Troutman gets the face mask. But when Sean was out, he's like, yeah, we can't have either. We can't have it. And he's right. And good teams don't beat themselves. And the Broncos ultimately, I guess you'd say, beat themselves by a dumb penalty late, but good teams figure out ways to not even have themselves in that position. Is that the experience you've seen with most Sean Payton teams, that they aren't normally a clumsy team that beats themselves, Chad?
They aren't, but it's concerning for me now. This is continuing from last season, and after an entire offseason to address it from a culture perspective, because you build your culture in the offseason and you build your expectations in the offseason, how we're going to conduct ourselves as a football team. Are we going to be a smart team? We're going to be a physical team. And that message needs to be hammered home so many times before it sinks into every guy in that locker room. But clearly every guy is not getting the message, because yes, the pre and post snap penalties, the penalties that are literally within your control as a player, this is what cost, we can point to that and say this cost them the game. Not just one single play lost the game, but if you're making those pre and post snap penalties, you're probably also blowing assignments, as we saw with the Jonathan Taylor passes that you're talking about. So it becomes a bit concerning about what's the culture, what's the coaching, when we're making those kind of mistakes at critical moments in the ball game, whether it's, again, the Jonathan Taylor passes, or it's the spike or the leverage. Those kind of things, they're going to cost you in a division that is going to be ultra competitive this year.
Yeah, and you talk about culture and talk about the expectations you set in the offseason. Well, no one has sung this team's praises more than the head coach. Sean Payton told every national person that came in town, from Albert Breer to Diana Rossini to Kay Adams and everyone else in between, that this is a Super Bowl caliber team. And they might be in terms of top to bottom, their roster 1 to 53, but Super Bowl teams don't shoot themselves in the foot, especially in critical situations. And that's what we saw today repeatedly by the Broncos, especially late. And so you've got to figure out a way to get over that hump. They may be catching a break, as you're looking ahead. We'll see what happens. Obviously, they get one extra day of rest compared to the Chargers, who will play in Vegas tomorrow night against the Raiders. So they've got that little advantage. And, they'll obviously fly to LA Saturday. But then when you're hearing the early reports out of Cincinnati that Joe Burrow's turf toe might include some torn ligaments, not good for a lot of people's fantasy teams and not good for the Bengals' real team. I don't see a world where Jake Browning comes in and beats the Broncos in a couple weeks on Monday night. But right now, you've got to get this taste out of your mouth. And that's something that Sean did talk about. He's like, this is going to be a tough film to watch. But he did say, there were some good plays. We mentioned Troy Franklin, the run game. And I think, don't the best coaches, you don't get too high after a win. You're not going to get too down after a loss. You say, what's correctable? And I don't think they got beat physically, right? Even though the Colts made plenty of mistakes, the Broncos made some key mistakes, like I said, in critical times, but it wasn't egregious. It didn't feel like that 70-20 loss against Miami a couple of years ago.
Oh, no, thank goodness. But it's hard to give up 160 yards and walk into your defensive meeting for Vance Joseph and say, from a physical standpoint, we were good. He can't say that. He can't say that. Yeah.
BK, we'll let. Sorry.
I'll be curious to see, does Dre Greenlaw make it back for the game in LA? They didn't put him on IR. They say he's close. We're hearing they're being overly cautious with him. Could that be the injection that they need, that spark? Especially because PS2 talked to him right before I came out to talk to you guys. He was the last guy in the locker room, like he often is. And he said, he just kind of rolled it. He misstepped, and we'll see. But look, Chad, you and I have talked about low ankle sprains, high ankle sprains. I saw Chad, who made a 15-year NFL career without any ankle issues or knee issues, and then hurts himself in rec league media softball. But
why are you bringing up old stuff, man?
Yeah, but everybody's ankles are different. The fact that he went in the game makes me think, okay, it's not a high ankle sprain. It's a roll, so many people, especially if you play basketball or, you stepping off a curb. So what will his limitations be? Because obviously you want to be at full strength against what we think is a pretty good Chargers team based on what we saw in week 1. And so, they're going to have to lick their wounds, but I guess you'd rather have tough losses like this in week 2. But we know how hard wins are to come by in this league. And I think that's what's going to sit with them. If they miss the playoffs by a game, if they miss a seeding or perhaps a shot to win the AFC, and it goes down to, after you pass your division, your common opponents or AFC opponents. And if that ends up being the case, and they're obviously playing the whole AFC South, they're going to look back and say, oh, we blew it in week 2, even though you're projecting all the way out to, early January.
BK, great stuff as always, man.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, get home safe, and we'll see you here in just the next couple days.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, BK. All right, we got one last bit, 30 seconds from Sean Payton. We'll run that, and then Chad, we'll wind this down.
Sounds good.
Here's Sean Payton on what they were expecting out of the Colts.
I want to watch the tape. Our coverage at times was sticky, and then at other times, wasn't as good. Obviously, it was going to be a pass first game for them, run second, and yet, they hit us with a long run late in the game. But I don't know what the breakdown was, but they threw it, a ton in the first half and even into the second half.
So we were going to talk about Daniel Jones, so that's how we'll put a bow on today's show. Daniel Jones goes 23 for 34 for 306 yards when it's all said and done. But then they still also give up 165 yards on the ground. Your thoughts on just Daniel Jones and what we heard a little there from Sean Payton?
I think Daniel Jones is proving that the Giants organization was an issue, not necessarily him.
Yep.
Certainly showed his wheels a number of times out there today. Running past our edge guys who usually chase people down. So that was, interesting to see. I'm sure Giants fans are lamenting that he is gone. But yeah, Daniel Jones was able to light up a Broncos defense, which is expected to be a top 5, top 3 defense. So if Daniel Jones is able to do that, what about Justin Herbert next week?
Yep.
Because Justin Herbert seemingly took a massive leap forward this year.
Yeah.
And so the Justin Herbert has always been a guy who checks the boxes, the physical size, the arm strength, so many pieces of the puzzle, toughness. But for whatever reason, this year, he's making plays in critical moments, and where in the past he did not.
Yeah.
So now this Broncos defense, to use BK words, comes in licking their wounds after Daniel Jones. Well, what does Justin Herbert do?
Yeah.
So this is going to be one of those games where hopefully the Broncos can get right, but it's certainly going to be an uphill climb because Harbaugh and Justin Herbert together, I think that's going to be a deadly combination for the AFC West for quite a while.
And if you're a player on the Los Angeles Chargers and you're watching this Broncos team, you see this game, you know that that's your opponent. Are you trying to jump on how the Broncos are feeling, or are you not even worrying about what they did before, what they did not? You're worrying about your game plan and how you line up, or do you try to take advantage of the fact there might be some shaky psyche in that Broncos room coming out of this week?
Well, you view opponents in the NFL differently. You view your division opponents differently than you do your other opponents. Mm-hmm. So the guys in your division obviously get a chance to know them. You see them twice a year.
Right.
And so to your point, the psyche plays a role in that. And so, the Chiefs are wounded. 0-2. Okay. And so we put that whooping on them. All right.
Yep.
Now we're going to show the Broncos who's the best team in this division. Now, obviously, the Raiders are going to try to make a claim for whatever they want to be in this division. But the Chargers right now, I think they see themselves as having an opportunity, maybe not to hit an early home run, but to intimidate the pitcher.
Yeah.
And show everybody we are for real. So, there's a certain psychological impact in this game that I think the Chargers would love to stomp the Broncos.
Yeah. And yeah, smell blood in the water a bit.
Yes.
29-28, Broncos go down in this one. Chad, any final thoughts on today's game this week, or maybe what you're expecting for the Broncos ahead?
Oh, I don't think this Bronco team sucks.
Yeah.
I don't. There's just simply too much talent. And so for Sean Payton to throw out the word Super Bowl, I don't think this team is ready as a team. But from a roster perspective, you look up and down, I could see this team with the makeup of it as a Super Bowl team. So he's not crazy in saying that. And then when we see guys like Troy Franklin emerge, okay, so now we've got some depth. This defense showed up last week and shows that it can win with a certain style. Yeah. But now there's things that you got to fix. Every game's not going to be that style. So I guess to kind of highlight the whole show we've had, some good, not enough good. And then some things that definitely need to be cleaned up. And I'm very interested to see how this mistake/culture thing plays out over the next couple of weeks, because in my experience, those things are a part of your culture. You can't just flip a switch on the wall and correct them within 1 week.
Yeah. busy week ahead for the Denver Broncos. They got a lot to get right.
Yes, they do.
To your point. Nate Jackson and Jake Plummer will be back at it tomorrow morning, breaking this game down in the cold tub. Then we'll have CJ and Al talking about the Buffs this week as well. So we will be on top of all of it. And then, of course, BK and Chris Harris Jr. will be breaking stuff down for you guys later in the week as well. Chad, this was a blast, man. Thank you so much.
It's a lot of fun, man. Let's do it again.
Yeah, let's do it again.
For
I love
sure.
it.
Yeah.
We'll have Chad back around more. I can promise you that over 7,000 of you hanging out with us here post-game. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Disappointing result for the Broncos. But like I said, we'll be on it all week long. And yeah, let's do it again.
Sounds good, my
Thanks
friend.
so much,
See you,
Chad.
buddy.
Appreciate it, everybody. See you.